Okay, so you're out at the Caribbean Day Festival, you're having a good time, and all of a sudden somebody wants to grind on your butt, you say no, and then you're dead. Like, that just makes no freaking sense to me. So for me, that's what toe tags represents. And once I started researching the names, after I asked you for the names, because I was halfway done with my piece, and then after reading the stories, I was stuck. The canvas sat on the easel for like a whole week just because I didn't know what to do next. But I knew the American flag had to be a part of the piece just simply because these are our American sisters. Their blood runs through the soil of, our martyrs, like, the Harriet Tubmans, the activist June Jordan, Audre Lorde. Like, those are the people that I think of when I was inspired. So I knew it had to be powerful, and it had to be huge. Like, I didn't want to do anything small, so it really had to be big. And I'm just like really honored to be here, and thank you again. And I'm just so glad we're having this conversation because it's definitely needed and it's very, very important.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna welcome the other sister here. Give us a little bit about your work. Love your earrings, by the way. Shout.
Special. I've been wearing them actually every day since we started. So I am very fortunate because I happen to be partnered with an amazing woman, and my work in this, I think this is a movement now. We're going towards a movement. Is coming from as a performance artist, but also as a mental health counselor and a mother. I'm a mother of boys, two young Black men that are oftentimes the focus of a lot of my energy. So young girls are also part of like what I find special. I was not blessed with any, but I think that my part of what I'm going to be doing is really looking at my own womanhood through this, and how am I going to inform some of the decisions that I make as I'm either curating or helping to curate, helping to find artists, helping to draw upon not just the history, but also where the future is going. So that's where I think my work is going to be. I'm very honored and blessed that I was in the way because it has given me a new purpose in life.
Thank you very much. I'm going to bring down the line here with the two fellow artists, the last two fellow artists in the room. Or my sister.
Hello, I'm Ade Bumi Badeba, and my piece here is Salon Talk / Dada. It actually originally started off as a singular piece, Dada, but then when Armisi reached out to me about being a part of the show and what the theme was of the show, I started looking at my own personal experience and unfortunately, I was, a couple of years ago, a victim of police brutality. And in that situation with that officer, I guess the thing that made me snap was when he put his hands on me. And that's when I felt like I feel like like Black people in the presence of the police, we already feel the danger because often enough we know that you could do nothing and die, right? But it was when he actually put his hands on me where I felt like my body was in danger. So my piece, I have been doing series for the last 2 years using human Black hair, but I added the salon chair, and it had an audio component. It's not on it right now. Where to me, like the salon chair represented, number one, the body, and then it also represented the safe the safety, you know, like a place of safe haven. The salon, the barbershop, especially in the Black community, usually serve as that. So looking at comparing it to my situation where 1 second I'm in control of my body and the next second someone is controlling my body, I wanted, and the audio piece that was attached to the chair are actual audio clips of Black women being abused by the police. So the piece, to me, like, called Salon Talk, where you have, to me, like, these three components of the Black body, right? So the voice, the chair, the hair, it's human DNA, like, that's someone's body. And my hopes is that it will be in this kind of three, like, just this conversation gumbo of safety, endangerment, power, you know, depowering all these elements.
Phenomenal. We're gonna get into some of that because it sort of links to something you both brought up, and but I want to take it to my fellow art teacher sister over here. Tell us a little bit.
My name is Danielle Scott. Yeah. I am one of the artists in Say Her Name. Since we're all talking about Newark, I did graduate from Arts High School in '97. When I was invited to be a part of the show, all I can think of is the many women of Newark who have influenced my work. Gladys Barker Grower happens to be one of them. Gladys is 93 years old, and she's been my mentor since I was 14. There's also Bisa Washington, who's another one that I worked in her studio beside her, watching her create and becoming influenced by her. The Say Her Name show, when Armisi first asked me to be a part of it, it made me think of the work I created last year, but it was about men. It wasn't about women and police brutality or abuse. And I kept thinking of mannequins. What can I do with mannequins? I had one mannequin in the house, and I was like, there's something that I have to do with these mannequins. And I thought of their size. How tall will they be? Are they going to be powerful enough? And as someone who's tiny, you know, when someone walks up to me that's, you know, above 5 feet, I look at them and I'm like, you know, wow, everyone scares me. So I wanted them to be, one, Black, two, to be tall. So if you walked in and you saw them, they're right in your face. When I created the mannequins and also the paintings, I made sure that my 14-year-old daughter sat beside me. My daughter helped me collage the women on, and she looked up their names and researched what happened to them, because I wanted her to understand, as a young girl, African-American, biracial child, anything can happen to you. And you have to be aware of that. And as she read them, she sat there in tears, and she said, "Mommy, I can't believe this happened to women," with their children in their car. So the one piece that I have in the show is Eleanor Bumpers. I believe Eleanor Bumpers was killed in 1981 in the Bronx, in her apartment. And then last week, another story came on 1010 Winds, and I'm in the car with my daughter, and she goes, "Mommy, did you hear that?" And she said, "Mom, another woman, Deborah Danners, 66 years old, in the Bronx." Same situation, very similar to Eleanor Bumpers. So I made sure that her name was added. The other pieces that I play around with chess pieces and a lot of army men, and the chess pieces stood out for me. So I made sure to take out all the queens. And I remember looking at Beyonce's Lemonade, and I'm not a Beyonce fan, but her Rise Queen Rise stood out. And I made sure that the chessboard was about just queens, no one else. And that was the purpose of it. And that's the paintings. I did them in black and white so that you can see them, and they stood out. The two tiny pieces that have all the women that are just a simple bathroom sign, I thought that they would stand out more than doing realistic pictures of women. So the silhouettes of the bathroom sign with the one gun in the middle. And then there's a tiny piece that's "Stop Killing Us," and it has the American flag in there. I've started messing around with American flags. The largest piece is Full Human. And it started off with a half a body mannequin. And I kept looking at the mannequin saying, what can I do with this? What can happen? So I started drawing something out, and I thought of how men look at women as objects, not as full humans. And I drew it out and said, I have to figure out how to put this piece together. I called my mother. She is my hero, my shiro. And she said to me, I'll build it. So we put together the boxes and made sure the objects went in the boxes. And the saying on it is, women are not whores or bitches or breeders. We are full human. We're not sexual objects. And I tried to put little objects that people would understand, what those objects are, and really start looking at women as humans and not just, her breast or her butt or this or that. You really need to look at us and appreciate who we are. And as a mother, I have a 15-year-old son, I have a 14-year-old daughter, and I have a 7-week-old son. And I think of my son, when a cop pulls him over, is he going to be looked at as the violinist that he is, or the pianist that he is, or the straight-A student that he is? Or is he just going to be looked at as another young African-American boy on the street? And the same thing with the 7-month-old. And I know I shouldn't be thinking that way, but that's reality, and that's what it is. And as an artist, I used to paint these pretty paintings. And I just said, why am I doing that? That's not what I feel. It looks pretty, but now I need to make people talk. And I need to cause controversy, because that's what needs to happen in this world to make it better. So, that's it.
Yes. Struggle is necessary for change. And I want to pick up on that piece, and I want to talk about the role that revolution plays in each of your consciousness, your work, your daily operating. Because when you engage in struggle and you engage in movement and movement building, which I'm sensing is happening here, you have to, in Buddhism, every thought becomes, a word, and then becomes an action. And then you reinterpret that. And so what role does revolution play? Whether it is unconscious or conscious, can you reflect on how you arrived today and talk about revolution? Who wants in on this game? My sister here.
Okay, well, there's just so many ways to come at it. I mean, my gosh. Revolutionary, a title that's thrust upon us, sometimes a banner that we put on ourselves, is very interesting. I think for me, chapter 1 of my life, chapter 1 of my life was, it was my desire to rise as high as I could in corporate America. To be a woman in corporate America, ascending to the point where you're in a room full of men and the only black woman making decisions in corporate America on any level is revolutionary. At the same time, to be a woman, black woman, in corporate America and actually have a thought that is not in line with what people deem as appropriate or make them comfortable is revolutionary. Revolutionary is, for me, in chapter 1 of my life, when Kanye West said George Bush doesn't like black people, and I had to go to work the next day and be in that same room, and after having pitched Kanye West for sponsorship at my job, because I worked in marketing, and have to then be the black woman and the ambassador, and what do I say? So do I say what I really feel? Do I say what's going to make people comfortable? Whatever I said, if I open my mouth, is being revolutionary. And this is just chapter 1. So in chapter 1 of my life, when I'm sitting in a room full of people who are paid a lot of money to strategize about what African Americans like to consume and what we are, and ask me, well, are you black or African American now, says the non-white strategic vice president, and you give your answer, and then they want to debate you on what you consider yourself after they just asked you the question was considered revolutionary, to the point where you develop a reputation on whether you call yourself revolutionary or not. You get branded as such in certain circles. And so that informed me, because you internalize it. You internalize it, and that's what I was saying earlier. Like, I have so much that I've had to internalize over 20 years in order to go along and get along. So at some point, you just want, either you accept me for who I am, or you're just not really going to accept me. And if I'm on the outside, then am I revolutionary? Because you're calling me that. I'm just doing. If what I'm doing is revolutionary to you, then I'm upsetting your way of being. And then there's intentional revolution, right? Which is, if evolution ain't happening fast enough, sometimes you got to have a revolution. You got to rev it up. I think in chapter 2 of my life, it is about, it has been, and I'm continuing because I'm now in chapter 2, to see that it's revolutionary to lead as a woman, as we're seeing as a woman in general, as we're in the middle of the presidential election in 2016. And to be a black woman. And then for me to have to educate young black men that I come in contact with, whether they're my interns or anything else, on how to respect me as a black woman who's leading, because there's certain things that I know that you're saying to me that you maybe wouldn't say to someone else in a dominant white male structure corporate environment. And so revolution, I think is you either, and I think we need to stop woke shaming folk, because everybody has their own level that they're at and way that they contribute, their own level of consciousness. I think you have to allow it to ooze and drip and rub off on people and testify, just like why religion spread all over the world. That's how so-called revolution has to spread all over the world. And I say so-called because, like I said, there is, I do believe there's true revolution and revolutionaries, but I think by default, any of us on any given day, because it's a spectrum, can go from being a little woke to being full-on revolutionary. Like you said, he pushed your button. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I get woker, and every time I talk to you guys about your art, like when she said, I thought it was revolutionary how she just did what she did with the hair, when we were just talking about how there was a chair. It was a news piece about a chair that someone had in their family for years, and how in that chair they took it to an upholster shop to get reupholstered, and when the upholsterer started pulling back the layers in order to reupholster this chair, they got down to the stuff in it, and was stuffed with African black slave hair. So the fact that you thought just a whole nother wave of consciousness of what you're doing with hair, but talk about the fiber of us being in this country and the American flag, they're sitting on our DNA. We are in the fiber, and for how revolutionary is it that we have a black woman in the White House who could then say, who's as close to the President of the United States, more so than the Vice President or the Secretary of State, because she's sleeping with him. Okay, so she knows everything. And talking about that the house that she sleeps in was built by slave labor. That in itself, what's happening right now is revolutionary. And so we're all being forced to come out of our little shells to varying degrees of wokeness, because there's an element that doesn't like that there was 8 years of blackness in the White House. And so if maybe what you're seeing, and say her name Newark, all of this, it just wasn't like I said, sometimes we all have that button, and maybe the Sandra Bland was it for me. But I think it's all of our experiences bring us to the road to this point. Not I mean to meander, but it is not one thing. No. It's just not one thing.
When we're recreating the world, sister, we have to meander to come back, and it is not a straight road. Revolution is not a straight road, and the meandering makes it richer, makes it deeper, and it brings more people because they're in the woods. So meandering is good for us. And, I want you to respond to how she picked up on your work, but I want to say a shout out to #say her name, #Michelle Obama. Yes. I want to say that Michelle Obama is the reason, if she is elected, Hillary Clinton will be elected. And I want to say one more thing about Michelle Obama, about that speech she made. Michelle Obama knows that the only way a black woman will be president, speaking about her daughters, is if a white woman is president. Let's be honest about that. She understands that. And so when she's speaking about her 2 daughters that are growing up in a house that slaves built. But she knows that to break that ceiling, it's got to be broken by a white woman, because that's when we speak about revolution from a black woman's perspective, we do it within a context of understanding the revolution that built the United States of America. We're always revolutionary, right? Because we were built on revolution. So I want to have you respond to that whole bit that she just talked about, which, thank you for sharing that with me. I didn't know that about chair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, when we had that conversation, it was interesting because I saw that article about the chair, and me including the chair in Dada. I didn't even make that connection. And I think that's, to me, blackness is so sometimes, especially in the art context, so representational, right? We have all these stereotypes of blackness. So me going in this direction with my art, what in a more abstract, a lot of it is, you could say, minimalist, was to make blackness less representational, to allow the viewers to put more of their interpretation, to broaden what we consider blackness. So I really like that moment where you saw something totally different, because I think it speaks to that. For my personal experience, where I think I'm being revolutionary, was probably the decision to give up paint and to use black hair. I just graduated from the School of Visual Arts. I was the only black person in my class. And I remember one class, I'm the only black person. And I already was starting to have this idea that, I'm just sick of paint because of its loadedness in this Western white male history. I was starting to feel disconnected from that, especially learning it from an art historical standpoint. So already thinking about what material to use, I remember a classmate asked me, "Why do you make black art all the time?" And I just went off on the class, because I'm what does that mean? Is white art the default? But I was so frustrated, and in that moment, I think I became revolutionary because I could have saw that as, I don't want to be labeled. I'm having this idea to use black hair. Is that black art? They're pigeonholing my art. I could have took that route, but I said, no, I'm going to make big black hair art. I'm going to make it big. I'm going to make it huge. It's going to be just black hair, So for me, that was my personal revolutionary moment, that shift, that no, I'm going to use black hair, because especially human hair, because this is our DNA. Like you said, we're sitting on the DNA. That's our DNA. That's someone's history, lineage, identity. Even when you stress, your strands get skinnier, you could, everything is embedded in our hair spirit,
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So to me, like that was that shift that and I'm glad I did that, because I could have easily shied away from it or been afraid to, especially being the only black person in my class, to be labeled as like the black artist, you know, the black, she's making black art, but I'm like, no, you know, I'm gonna.
But of course, yeah. And by the way, you know, I was hearing something on NPR about quietness. You are loud. You're just loud. Your art is so loud. Know that.
Boomie's piece, when you walk in, I think that the first thing that you can say, or the first thing that you can agree on, is it forces you to look up at black hair, to appreciate black hair. You're not, if you are in a salon, you're seated on the floor, but you have to look up. You have to look all the way up, and you have to appreciate what's going on. Each strand, you can walk around, you can see them clearly and what they represent. And I mean, we've talked several times, and I understand what she went through in her classroom, because I graduated from School of Visual Arts as well.
And you're the reason
as the only African American or biracial person in the classroom, and I lost my honors in my classroom because my professor was African American, and what he did was he pushed and pushed and pushed at me, and my senior year was the year I was pregnant with my son, and he didn't appreciate that. He said to me, "How are you going to continue as an artist and be pregnant?" And he stopped coming in my studio and seeing my work after a while. And then I noticed that my name was on honors, top honors for one of the fine arts majors, and then my name was taken off. And I had to talk to him about that. But I understand what she went through, because I happened to be one of the only African American artists students in his class, and he just kept, it was like he was attacking me for, you know, not pushing myself as an African American artist and becoming a mom. Like, he couldn't understand how I was capable of doing both. And then at that time, I was painting. And then my paintings were a lot of female paintings. And I was known as the vagina artist. I was building vaginas. I was sculpting vaginas. I was a part of vagina monologues. And I think I went through that phase of that part of female empowerment. I wanted to change it with something else through my sculptures, or through, I still mess with paint, but I mess with paint in a different way. But I totally understand her as an artist and as a student of the School of Visual Arts, where you're surrounded by predominantly white professors. They're not, it's weird if you get a African American professor, and I happen to have one who, you know, couldn't handle me being a mom and an artist at the same time.
We're going to come back to talk to you more about your revolutionary stance, especially in SVA. I'm really sensing something when we talk about revolution. We talk about hashtag Say Her Name. We're talking about female, our womanness, our blackness, and our black femaleness, and I think that is critical to put at the forefront. To own that our black femaleness should be loud, and it should be at the forefront. And it's not just say her name, but say her black name, say her brown name. You know, that's it, and there's nothing wrong with that. And sister, pick up from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't say my name. My name is Leah Jackson. What you said hit me, because that's, I think, the whole issue is that black women have been at the forefront of every single fight. Every single revolution, we've been at the forefront. We're the first casualty. And then I thought about also, as a mother, we give birth, right? So if we're murdered, brutalized, raped, degraded, is that a word? Denied. Degraded is the word I want here. Then what are we doing to the womb? What are we doing to the womb? So it is so fascinating to me that while we are so visible, we are so invisible. And the recognition that the art pieces that these three women and the other women in the show have contributed gives us this spotlight, gives us this big discussion that we have to have, why those hashtags, as annoying and as crazy as they can be, are so vital to getting the point across, because we live in a world where everything is so fast, and we have to be able to slow down and say her name and understand that it is about the loudness, it is about not being quiet anymore, because they do, socialize little girls to be demure, to be small, to close yourself off. And as Kim said, earlier, how when she asserted herself and made her presence known, then they were, there's a little bit of side eye, or a little bit of let me try to quell that, right? The angry black woman. Yes, and the labeling. While I'm a wordsmith, so I love words, and I'm like, okay, call me. I was in high school. They called me Mrs. Malcolm X. I was always on a soapbox. Okay, because I was the only black woman. Well, I was a girl in my high school class. And I went to I went to Columbia High School in Maplewood, New Jersey. And I was in the top classes, the honors classes, the only black female. Maybe there'd be one black male. And I was always the one bringing up the issues of black history, black context. Why? Because I came from a household that is what was being poured into me. So I think about the development of me and how that is now going to influence other generations. Whether my children decide to procreate or not, I have now been able to give to others, whether I birthed them or didn't. And that is a blessing. And that's why I always do think about the future, not just because I'm not staying in the present, but because I know that as a woman, it is in my nature to give, and it is in my nature to expand, because the world, we call it Mother Nature, we call the world is expansive, and that is femaleness. And the more that we understand that as black women, it's not about it, it is in our sass, it is in our vernacular, it is in how we greet one another, how we look at one another, it is in our attitude, and that is okay. And that this exhibit, the dialogue that we're going to have this weekend and continue to improve on, that we can possibly give to other cities, is going to increase that vibration and bring the spotlight onto black women and girls. The importance of not just, it's not about saving, it's about let us develop these young women. Let us understand their humanness, understand their totality. And as a mental health counselor, I have to say that, my goal in this is to have support groups for at least 3, for girls, for women, for women who have lost loved ones due to violence in the streets, because we are also not able to take care of ourselves because we're taking care of everybody else. Whether we are single, whether we are in a relationship, whether we're just always giving. So there's like the double-sided coin with giving and that. So that part of it is what hit me, when you're saying what we're doing is a movement and a revolution, because it is an evolution, it is a revolution, it is a movement. It's in the moment, because we have to strike while the iron's hot, all of that. And we're very fortunate, I think, to be in this day and time because of social media, because of the internet, because of the technology that we did not have in previous years. I think about Ida B. Wells and her fight to get the word out through mass media in those days. you know, and she was able to do it. I mean, she traveled, you know, I mean, can you imagine her journeys and as a black woman who was speaking out against lynchings? You know, so what Kim and I are on this journey, this purpose in our lives is, I think, on the level of we're continuing the work that's been done, being done in corners, done, you know, in churches, done in the salons, in the schools, all of that, all of that.
There's a common theme also as I'm talking to you guys, that in all your works, and I just want to bring it up and put it on the table, objects, and we all talked about that. You talked about the objectification when we talk about Sakia Gunn and who we deem worthy based on how feminine the judge and jury deems their life to be, and what is femininity and all that kind of stuff. And it's almost like, but then when we talked about the hair and the chair and the fabric and the DNA, we're just as much as objects as this cell phone or cotton that was used to stuff the chair. Objects, objectification, you know, objectifying us, putting us on a mantle, some of us, separating us. Some of us are only worthy to be sat on, you know, and your piece that goes into we are full human. So I just saw that in all of what you just said as well. Just want to bring that up.
Thank you. So a lot of things that you guys said. So at first I was thinking about the glass ceiling and Michelle and Hillary, and I was thinking about U.S. history. I was thinking about Sojourner Truth and Ain't I a Woman, and, you know, which, you know, now that I'm thinking about this, I was like, that would have been really good here too. So like her whole Ain't I a Woman, you know, like nobody opened the door for me, nobody helped me into a carriage. You know, but ain't I a woman? I thought about like
her being a man.
Well,
She had to expose herself.
right. So I think about I think about, you know, back to Sakia Gunn. So if you Google Sakia Gunn, it's the murder of Sakia Gunn, not just her name. So if you look up Matthew Shepard, it doesn't say the murder of Matthew Shepard. It is Matthew Shepard. So I think about how I'm revolutionary, and when you mention height, so I'm looking at the height of all of us. You know, I'm 5'3"3/4", but I'm really like 5'3" and a half, maybe. But, you know, right. So I come from a lineage of very short but very tall women. My grandmother was 5 feet, red hair, and, you know, a couple of years back I was sporting, like, my hair was as red as your hat. And it was because of the love of my grandmother, because she was so powerful. Her mother was half black and half white, you know, daughter of a slave owner. And, you know, my grandmother with an 8th grade education, you know, became a nurse. You know, then I think about my mother, who put both my sister and me through school as a single mother, but, you know, and that was after the divorce. But she also put my father through college by doing his homework while she was at home. So he got the degree, she stayed home, but she was smart and knew everything. So when you talked about this passion for Black history, that was my origin as well, because I was the one of, you know, 3 African American women or young girls at that time in an all-Catholic school in Ferguson, Missouri. So So, when everybody's like, oh, well, where are you from? Are you from Newark? I say, no, I'm from Ferguson. Then I get the, oh. And, and I always tell people the backstory. So when I was in Ferguson, my mother actually moved to Ferguson so I could get a better education, because she didn't want me to be in the city, in St. Louis. But revolutionary is having that one African-American teacher show up at the grade school where I'm that one of 3. Revolutionary is her embracing me and saying, okay, look, this is what you have to do to get to where you want to go, and I am going to help you. Like, that's revolutionary. Revolutionary is me saying, okay, you're talking about Egypt like it's not part of Africa. So if you look at Jesus, according to the dogma of the Bible, then it's saying he looks this way, this way, this way, was born here, and I'm pointing to it on the map, and it surely looks like that's in Africa to me. So in a Catholic school, saying that, and I get the go to the principal's office. Revolutionary is taking what my mother taught me and then going to high school and doing the exact same thing. Revolutionary is saying, okay, we have a whole bunch of young black girls at this all-white Catholic all-girls high school, and you're over there, and you're over here, and you're over there. We need to come together, because in this space, our issues are not being addressed. So, where is our Martin Luther King Day? Where is it at? Where is our conversation about that? Or Malcolm X, or whomever. Revolutionaries in college, so then I switched up. So then I went to all black university. So I stood out there because I was so accustomed to the way things were. So now I'm the one with the big ponytail walking around in shorts in the wintertime. Nobody understood me, but I was okay with that. I was okay with that because I was there to learn, but then I met my son's father, and then life changed for me. But being revolutionary is being okay in who I am as a black lesbian and saying, sorry, not you, it's me, I apologize, but when you're pushed in a way to say that this is what the norm is, like you mentioned about the white art, like is that the default button? Being hetero for me was the default button that I was forced to play in that role all the time. Being revolutionary was coming to Newark when, our gay kids were getting murdered on the street and saying we need safe spaces, when everybody else was like, okay, so we need this, this, and this, but blood is still being spilled on the corner of Broad and Market. Being revolutionary is teaching at our higher institutions of learning and telling them that, again, American is already great and you need to read between the lines what that means. Being revolutionary is me getting up every day and being able to share what I've learned, what I've experienced, who I am with my son, who lives in Florida, and as a black male, trying to explain to him that, again, it doesn't matter you have a nice job, it doesn't matter you own a home, it doesn't matter that you drive a nice car, they just still see blackness. And being revolutionary is also showing him how to treat the woman that he is with, because I have high standards for myself, and you should have high standards for the person that you are partnered with, who is going to be the mother of your child. And being revolutionary is breathing every day and being able to do the work that I do, to be able to be around such amazing women, sharing stories and providing healing in even just simple conversation. And that's being revolutionary to me.
I want to come to you, and I want you to pick up on your revolution road.
I can agree with June on so many levels. As an African American lesbian myself, that's one major thing is being revolutionary is coming out and saying who you are and not hiding and pretending and staying in the role that you're not meant to be in at all. And making sure, I mean, I used to hide it a lot, especially if I was approached. I mean, I kind of still hide that because of the Shakia guns of this world. When I'm approached by men, I kind of shy off and go the other way, or I just try to just move away from them. Because I know that, you know, it's going to come up. Are you married? Are you this? Are you that? And I want to express who I am, but there is a fear in me that something will happen because I am a tiny person. I am 4'11", and when a man approaches you that's 6'3", you don't want to mess with that. And I try to keep it to myself, but I also work in a high school where I formed the first GSA in Jersey City in the high schools, and had the Board of Ed come down my throat because why are you pushing this? Why are you pushing a safe space? So that for me is being revolutionary. Pushing my students to be who they are and not be afraid as I was. And I had no reason to be afraid because I was raised by 2 moms. I have lesbian moms. And my students would come to me every day. My mom kicked me out. My dad kicked me out. I'm sleeping out in the street. I'm sleeping behind here. And for me, it was, I have to find a way to create a safe space for my students to be able to reach out to other people like them, go to other places and talk to people like them. So that was a hard part. And then I had teachers attacking me. So being a revolutionary is looking at those teachers and saying, okay, mind your own business. I'm going to take care of these children as if they are my children. So my students in my school call me mom for many reasons, because I am there for them morning, noon, and night. It does not matter. I can think of so many things for me as being revolutionary. It's just, you know, like June said, breathing every day, and teaching my children that this is the way you're supposed to carry yourself, especially, and I don't want to say especially my son, but he needs to know that there's a wrong way to handle yourself. There's a right way. You should treat women this way. So being revolutionary is allowing my son to play with a doll and sit there and know how to take care of a child. Because I've had people tell me, why do you let your kid play with dolls? He's a boy. Why not? Why can't my daughter play with army men? They need to know what's going on. My son needs to know how to change a diaper, to deal with babies, and to be there if he does decide to have children. I don't know. There's so many things that I can continue to go on, but I understand what June is saying, and it's a shame that we have to hide who we are to be a part of this world sometimes. You can't just walk down the street and be free to be you know? And it's depressing. It's pretty sad. And, you know, you're put into these, like June said, you're put into labels as feminine or aggressive or this. I don't like those labels. I can't stand them. Don't put me in that. I am who I am. And that's it. I mean, I'm tattooed, and people see me and they're like, but why? You're a feminine little dainty. No. My tattoos don't define me, who I am. And they definitely don't take away from me teaching a child, you know? I guess that's another one. Being revolutionary is speaking up to a parent who looked at me and said, you're my child's teacher, but you have tattoos up your back and on your arms? Yes, I do, but does that change the way I treat your child when your child needs breakfast, lunch, and I give them the money to go do that? So that's a couple of things.
Or the knowledge you have to give them, that doesn't change. Me too, I have the same.
You know, I'm stunned, and I'm so in love with all of you right now, because revolution is love. It is also standing in your space firm and letting the wind blow and not bending. That's revolution. And you know, that's when I am so touched by all of these stories. And it sort of forces me to talk for us. You know, what I want to hear you talk about is there a juxtaposition between freedom and safety? And that comes up when we talk about revolution. If we claim revolution, right, is there a juxtaposition between freedom and safety, and how? So I want to hear who wants.
Like, hasn't there always been? Right? Hasn't there always been? It's now? Okay, so is this our wrap up? This is our wrap up. Okay. Thanks, Gary, for keeping me.
Okay. Okay, so this is a great note to end on. Is that good, Mr. Campbell? Because I got to go with my brother's flow. It is a great note to end on. It means that we've got to do a next one. We've got to bring in some more folks because everything we've said leads us to the next discussion on, is there a juxtaposition? Is it counterintuitive to think about freedom and safety in corporate America, in academia, which is one of the most archaic corporate structures, and I've learned about it in the past 5 months, in mental health institutions, and I've worked in mental health institutions, in public education systems, and in being where you are right now, a product of SVA, at the brim of greatness, because there are so many possibilities for you in your youth. Our next conversation should be about that. I am so in love with all of you right now. It is too powerful. Kim, thank you for inviting the Artist Recreates World to collaborate with you.
Leah Jackson, my co-creative agitator.
You ended tonight.
Well, on behalf of Leah Jackson and myself, woo, 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 woo. On behalf of all the women everywhere who are with us, say her name collectively. Say her name collectively. In remembrance of those who are not with us. Let us say their names collectively. Those who are with us but have to live every day with the scars and the pain that will never heal. Let's say their names collectively. Let us we want to just, in our own ways, however you pray, to just hope that just like we found a safe space and an outlet, that's just the beginning for us, as we're going to go back into our own little corners and continue to, we have the freedom. We're so blessed to have the freedom to create, at least for now. And we'll see what happens on election day.